Chapter 14, Reunion of Idiocracy. A few days after the funeral for Gus, Mountain woke up on Johnny Pulaski's floor. His head ached from the half-dozen bottles of whiskey that the two of them had split in the time since attending the service. Johnny and Mountain had not yet discussed the matter, but it was rather clear to each of them that Mountain would now be staying with Johnny indefinitely. Then, suddenly, Mountain saw a pistol pointed at his face from about a foot away. It was a policeman. Mountain wondered what, in the course of their blurry evening prior, had prompted this. As it turned out, Johnny's car had slid down the driveway a few feet after an unexpected ice storm and was sticking ever so slightly out into the road. The cops had come to alert them, but found the door to Johnny's place to be slightly ajar. The police tried to knock before they came inside Johnny's place, but the drunken sleeping duo did not hear them. As it turns out, Johnny was now an avid bow and arrow hunter and had left a half-mutilated deer carcass on his back porch before going to the funeral. He simply ran out of time, Johnny exclaimed before he started arguing with the police about a noise violation that he had received during the week prior. The venison, in its early state of decay, or perhaps preparation, briefly made the police wonder if Johnny had now graduated from a car thief to a sadistic serial killer. But of course that was not Johnny's style. Janie, Mountain's old neighbor and short-term fling, and Johnny's long-term ex-girlfriend had left Johnny a few weeks prior, and without her. And now without Gus, there was nothing left to keep him on the straight and narrow, even relatively speaking. "Feels like I never even left," Mountain then chuckled, while he searched rather diligently through Johnny's unorganized cabinets for more booze after showing the police officers out. The walls seemed to echo with laughter as they then settled into the well-worn couch, the cushions sagging under the weight of countless memories and future late-night conversations. "I thought that we could use a little bit of a change of pace," Johnny declared, now brandishing a very large joint like a triumphant warrior. "Maybe we just ought to forget the hard stuff for a while, and let's just kick back and relax. You know, Mountain, don't you think?" Mountain ever so slowly raised an eyebrow in mock skepticism. "Are you seriously telling me that you have turned into a flower child over the last few years, Johnny?" he teased, while accepting the proffered joint with a grateful nod. "Next thing you know, you'll be preaching the gospels of both peace and love to the patchily oiled masses." Johnny then laughed, with a hearty sound that echoed through the room as if it were a chorus of angels. "Hey man, don't knock it till you've tried it, my friend," he quipped as if Mountain was some sort of straight-edged square who was lighting up for the very first time with a seasoned pro. "Besides, life is too damn short to take it all so very seriously. Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches and enjoy the ride of life, Mountain." And roll with the punches they most certainly did, as the days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months, their antics becoming the stuff of legend in the sleepy town of Beanfield. With each puff of smoke and each raucous laugh, Mountain felt the weight of his worries begin to melt away and become incrementally replaced by a sense of freedom and euphoria that he had not felt in years. And as they lounged in a haze of smoke and shared stories of days gone by, Mountain could not help but marvel at the strange twists and turns that life had taken them on. "Who would have thought we would end up here, Johnny?" he mused half-jokingly, as they continued passing the joint between them as if it were a sacred torch. In that moment they were simply two misfits from the wrong side of the tracks, finding solace in, perhaps the most likely of places, each other. Johnny then nodded, his eyes shining with a mixture of both nostalgia and pride. "Life's funny like that, ain't it?" he replied, exhaling a cloud of smoke that seemed to swirl around them like a protective cocoon. "But hey, as long as we've got each other, I reckon we will be just fine." After a few more weeks passed by, Johnny came home from a day of work at Shady Pines and announced that he would now be the new head groundskeeper, because he, in the wake of the demise of Gus, had just inherited the job. Then he asked Mountain what it was that he planned to do for work. Mountain told Johnny he could make some money to pay him rent by gambling on local golf games. Johnny dismissively told Mountain not to worry about that right now, but that he did have a potential job opportunity to run by him. Then, in the dimly lit and somewhat dirty confines of Johnny's smoke-filled living room, Mountain sat perched on the edge of the threadbare couch, his mind swirling with a kaleidoscope of emotions as Johnny delivered news that seemed to dance on the edge of surrealism. "I can get you an interview for the golf pro post at Shady Pines," Johnny bragged. "Hold up a minute, Johnny. You're telling me that the position of golf pro at Shady Pines is open and up for grabs?" Mountain's incredulous tone ricocheted off the walls like a pinball, punctuated by a bemused chuckle. Mountain thought to himself about how far he had fallen to wind up on this side of the conversation with none other than Johnny Pulaski. Johnny's grin then widened to epic proportions, stretching across his face like a mischievous Cheshire cat. "You bet your sweet putter it is," he exclaimed, his words laden with a palpable sense of confidence and excitement. The old bloke who held the title before could not take the pressure any longer, so he packed up his golf bags and skedaddled after his old friend Dead Gus passed away. "And you know what that means, don't you, Mountain?" Mountain could not help but raise an eyebrow, with the corners of his mouth twitching with suppressed laughter. "Enlighten me, O sage of Shady Pines," he quipped, his tone now dripping with playful sarcasm. Johnny's eyes gleamed with the fervor of a preacher at the pulpit, his voice booming with evangelical zeal. "It means opportunity, my old friend. Opportunity knocking louder than a drunk frat boy at closing time," he declared, punctuating his words with an emphatic fist pump that nearly sent his coffee table flying across the room. The very mention of the departed golf pro brought a wistful twinge to Mountain's heart, like a faded photograph dredged up from the depths of memory. "Poor old Gus," he murmured, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "He always had a way with the Shady Pines greens, didn't he?" Johnny's expression softened, a look of reverence crossing his features as he nodded solemnly. "You mean Dead Gus, buddy. But now it shall be our turn to carry on the legacy of Shady Pines," he declared, his voice infused with a sense of quiet determination. As the conversation then turned to the next steps in Mountain's journey, Johnny's normally very calm voice then began to take on a more serious tone, like a 4-star general mapping out a battle plan. "You must now have a sit-down with Mr. Jebediah Turnpike, the owner of Shady Pines whose frugality is legendary," he explained, his words heavy with import. "Now I have to warn you, not only does the man throw around nickels as if they were manhole covers, but he is most certainly just as peculiar as a 3-legged chicken. He's fine with a nip of the hard stuff now and then, but he has got a bee in his bonnet about anything to do with the devil's lettuce." Mountain could not help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all, the irony of Jebediah's stance on substances not lost on him. "So let me get this straight," he began, with a mischievous glint in his eye. "The man's okay with knocking back a few cold ones, but heaven forbid that anyone should ever spark up a joint. Sounds like he's got his priorities all twisted up like a pretzel." Johnny nodded in agreement, a knowing smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "You got that right, buddy. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? If it means getting your foot in the door, you have to at least pretend to play by his nonsensical book of rules." As Mountain pondered the upcoming interview with Jebediah, a sense of both anticipation and trepidation began to swirl within him like a whirlpool. Whether he was destined for greatness or disaster remained yet to be seen, but one thing was for certain. He was now about to embark on another wild ride, and he was ready to grip the wheel with both hands and hang on for dear life.